Sergeant at Arms, salute the colors.
Detail, attention! Hold on! That's you guys. Present arms! Order, order! Please remove your covers and prepare for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain uncovered for our chaplain, Marge Kavanaugh.
Uncovered. Dear Lord, on this anniversary of the terrorist attacks of 9/11, grant us the wisdom to remember the lessons from that tragic day. As we look back to where we were that fateful day, may these memories compel us to do acts of kindness. We pray for those whose lives were forever changed. As we mark the anniversary, may we discern what really matters and recognize your grace that pervades it all. In your name we humbly pray. Amen.
Merrill E. Simmons Post 130 would like to welcome you to our annual 9/11 service, remembering those who died on 9/11 and those who were killed in the action since 9/11. We invite our state and local representatives and member of the American Legion to say a few words. State Senator Jake Oliveira, State Representative...
Jake Oliveira. Hey, that's your cue. No, you don't
Just elbow him out of the way.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. I'm Jake Oliveira, and I have the privilege of representing the town of Palmer and the Massachusetts Senate, along with my colleague and friend who grew up in this town, State Representative Todd Simola. And as we celebrate and recognize the sacrifice of so many of our first responders on 9/11 23 years ago today, I think it's important to point out, when you look around at our scouts that are here and some of our first responders, there are 70 million Americans that were born after September 11, 2001, who didn't see firsthand the terror that was inflicted upon our nation. And so it is our duty to continue to have these ceremonies so we can live up to the motto that we shall never forget. And for our young people who weren't alive when 9/11 happened, always remember, always understand what happened that day, and always respect those first responders who went into those buildings as they were burning. And I think it's important to also point out, as people were fleeing those buildings in New York and the Pentagon and in the air as well, trying to find safety, first responders, our firefighters, our police officers, our EMTs, our Port Authority officials, our members of our military at the Pentagon weren't running away from those burning towers. They weren't running away from the Pentagon. They were running into it in order to help. That human sacrifice that they risked all for continues to be what I remember on that day. And also the generous acts of kindness of so many individuals who wanted to help out their fellow man. And so while this day is a solemn day, and it's a day that we recognize the 3,000 people that were killed, also remember the tremendous acts of kindness and sacrifice that our first responders and individuals did on that day as well. So as we leave here and we recognize this 23rd anniversary, let us always live up to the motto that we shall never forget. Thank you.
State Senator Todd Smola.
Oh, no, it says representative now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So he introduced me as State Senator Smola. He just said he promoted me. I think he downgraded me. I just want you all to know that. I'm honored to be here with all of you tonight. My good friend, State Senator Jake Oliveira, who's been a wonderful steward for the town of Palmer during his time in the Massachusetts legislature. I just came from the State House today to be a part of a wonderful recognition ceremony, the Madeline Amy Sweeney Award recognition ceremony today. It's a recognition that we give to one individual in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for civilian bravery. For those of you that don't know the name of Amy Sweeney, she was a flight attendant on United 11. It was ultimately the flight that crashed into the North Tower on 9/11. She was one of the first individuals that actually risked her life to relay information to the ground crew on 9/11 that gave them wonderful intelligence to be able to make fast decisions, and ultimately that saved thousands of lives on the ground. Tragically, she and all of the passengers that were on United 11 unfortunately died when they crashed into the North Tower. But actually, as a flight attendant, she was here as a resident from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She lived in the town of Acton. And since that event, we have named this award after her. And I'm so honored to be a part of today's ceremony because we gave that recognition to an individual that lives not too far from the town of Palmer here in one of our neighboring communities from the town of Wales. You may have read about her, Jillian Smith. Back in December of last year, Jillian at 8 in the morning was putting her young child down for a nap, and she was alerted to a fire that was taking place in the home of her elderly neighbors. She rushed without thinking about her own personal safety over next door. She encountered the elderly man that lived there and said, "My wife is still inside the house." She ran into that fiery building filled with smoke, couldn't find her. She ran out to get a gasp of air. She got a full lung of air, and she ran in for a second time. She found this woman, she dragged her out of the house, and she saved her life. Such a phenomenal story. And I was talking to some of the fire chiefs that we were with today and some of the firefighters, and they said what she managed to do on that day is something that firefighters in training have difficulty doing under far easier circumstances than in the real life scenario of an actual burning house and a fire. Pretty tremendous. She's a very humble young lady, but we recognized her out of the 7 million people in Massachusetts for a wonderful act of bravery. These are the great heroes that live in our communities that put themselves on the line, just like our first responders did on 9/11, our firefighters, our EMTs, all of our emergency service personnel, to do that which others can't do for themselves. And I want to talk about one individual from the town of Palmer before I close, because there are a lot of those emergency service personnel that we take for granted or don't think about on 9/11. One of those individuals was actually a daughter of Palmer. Very sadly, just a few months ago, we lost her. For those of you that didn't know who Tammy P. Hoda was, you may have known her because if you ever had to call the Palmer Police Department over her 39 years of a career there, she may have been on the other end of the phone when you had an emergency in your home, a fire, a personal medical emergency. And I remember when I first got elected to the Board of Selectmen, Tammy was one of the first individuals that actually welcomed me to the town hall. And I remember when she was standing there in the office, and I heard this bell that was ringing in the old town hall. For those of you that remember this, before the police station, the new police station was built and it was in the existing town hall building, the 911 emergency system was linked to a bell that used to go off, kind of like an old school elementary bell. And anytime that 911 call came in, you would hear that bell ringing down the halls of the town hall office building. And I said to her one day, I said, you're the only person I can ask this because you're as straightforward as they come up here at the town hall. I said, what is that bell that's ringing? And she said, every time somebody calls 911, that's the emergency bell that alerts us that an emergency call is coming in. And once I knew that, I was absolutely shocked at how many times I would hear that bell ring throughout the course of the day. And it just reminded me of how important the emergency service workers, like our telecommunicators, our dispatchers, are to that process of being able to help people that are in need. If you think about the role they had on 9/11, Just imagine for a second the thousands of calls that came in that ultimately shut down the communication system because people were looking for help. And who did they call? They called 911, and our emergency telecommunicators and our first responders then got dispatched as a result of those calls. Those are special, important people that do a very, very difficult job, that take the worst of situations and are the first ones that hear it, and are committed to making sure that the right services get dispatched to those that are in need. Tammy Pihota was one of those individuals. She spent 39 years of service here to the town of Palmer, 20 years as a first-line dispatcher. We lost her very sadly and very tragically and unexpectedly. But today, as we honor and we recognize all of those first responders, I hope you will keep people like Tammy Pihota, a daughter of the town of Palmer, in your thoughts and prayers for the work that she and the countless other volunteers do on behalf of every single person in the town of Palmer and in every community across this country. God bless them, and God bless the United States. Thank you.
State Commander Nelson Blake.
As said, I'm Nelson Blake, the Department Commander for the American Legion. I am here representing our nearly 27,000 strong membership. This day, 23 years ago, I was just getting home. Well, I was getting off work to go back to my dorm room, and I was getting ready to go to bed after working third shift. And just as I was getting ready to crawl into bed, the phone rang in my dorm room, telling me that it was a real-world Delta recall that we needed to get to our squadron as soon as possible. Just as I was opening my door, the big loud voice on base said, "Real-world Delta, report to your squadrons ASAP." And from that point on, my life changed for the next 3 years, and it touched me every time I had to go into work. And then I ended up going over to Kuwait to deal with stuff over there, and then over to Afghanistan, where it really changed my view on stuff. I saw how bad it could be, and I saw that I didn't know what was going to be happening every time I turned around. And 15 days after being in Afghanistan, we were arming up a jet, and we were being fired upon while we were arming up the jet, and that changed everything, because 10 days later I was being sent back to Kuwait because of being fired on. They made the whole crew that we were arming go back, and we had to go talk to psychiatrists and stuff, and it changed me from that point on. This is actually the first time outside of those sessions I've actually told people about this, so I'm just kind of letting myself be free at this for once after 23 years. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and it's my honor to be here today.
Sophia Blake, she's first vice president.
Sophia Blake, First Vice Commander of the Auxiliary.
Thank you. As he said, I'm Sophia Blake. I'm the first Vice President of the American Legion Auxiliary. On behalf of the Auxiliary, it is my honor to be here. 23 years ago, I was a senior in high school. I was not worried about my brother who was in the service, because I'm like, oh, he's in Arizona. Nothing's going to happen. I had friends that had just gone to New York as college students. I was more worried about them. But yes, it's a very solemn occasion, and it changed my life completely with this happening my senior year.
Jim Blake, SAL Commander.
Well, if you really must know, I am their father. But, like he said when he was in, I never thought I'd ever worry about him. But every time you got a call, you're worried. I mean, my daughter's kind of, oh, my friends. But it's an honor to be here, be invited each year to here. And I think I'm getting a little bit better at speaking, but I wouldn't make a bet on that because I'd probably lose it. But I'd like to thank you all for inviting me, and this is a ceremony I wouldn't miss. So, thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite to the podium.
No, I'm gonna acknowledge.
Oh,
Acknowledge these people here.
oh, okay. All right, excuse me. I'm going to acknowledge Tina Borman, the VSO from Palmer, the Fire Council, the Fire Department Council, Jim St. Amand, and Dan Belanger. At this time, I would like to invite Aiden Nye to the stand. Oh, he's hiding over here. I would like to present to you a check for $100 from the fundraiser that was held for your Marvin P. Nave 501c3 fund from the Post. Thank you, sir.
This fund is to help homeless veterans in the area, and it's named after his grandfather, Marvin Ney, who was a member of this post.
Our guest speaker tonight is Brian LeWet, who served both on active service in the Army and Army National Guard. In 2010, Brian deployed to Afghanistan to the 86th Brigade Combat Team. His awards include the Purple Heart and an Army Combat Badge.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be up here. I've never had the honor of sitting up here, so I'm usually out there working this ceremony. And I asked Sally if I could be the Sergeant at Arms and come and speak, and she said no. Matt would handle Sergeant at Arms. So as much as I want Matt to do a great job, if he does too good of a job, I might not get my job back next year. So I'm going to. I wish him luck, but I want my job back next year. Thank you to our Jake and Todd. It's great to see you. Cindy, our district commander, Louis, past department commander, thank you for being here. And to Sally for really putting this on and making this happen every year. I've been coming to this ceremony for many years. When I would work working days, this was the only ceremony for 9/11 that you could attend because they're every other one is taking place at 9 o'clock in the morning, more or less. And I always thought of this as the working man's 9/11 ceremony. That's the way I thought of it in my mind. And this is why I was here. And this is also a special ceremony for us veterans because this is a ceremony where you're going to hear names read tonight, and they're service members that we served with, such as Kevin DuPont. Louis and I both served with Kevin. You're going to hear the names of other service members that I had the honor of representing either the VFW or the American Legion at their funerals in real time, such as Michael DiMarsico or Mitch Dowling. And also the name of Dan Petithory, who I was with his parents this morning in Pittsfield, and his parents still grieving. I let them know about the ceremony. I let them know that his name will be read tonight, and it's read every year, and they were very moved by that. I mean that. And so I told him I would try to place the rose in Dan's honor tonight. So we all know what this day is about, and we all have etched in our minds the timeline: the 846, the 903, the 937 at the Pentagon, the 1003 at Flight 93, But for us veterans, it's what happened next. It's what happened the next day, and the next day, and the next month, and the next year, and year after year. It was a small group of veterans, service members, the less than 1%, who served in this war for 20 years, defending America over and over again on deployment after deployment. Many of the same people. And that was no small task. Previous wars had the benefit of, say, the draft or other forces involved, larger armies in previous times. We had a very small army, and we maintained this war over 20 years, and successfully so. We, as I'll call us old soldiers, we were already in the Army or in military during 9/11, so I was a sergeant at the time. And for us, we knew that this was the moment we had been born for, that we had been training for, that we had joined the Army for, that this was the moment that was made for us. We were going to defend America in this time. What we could not have known is that our kids would join us on that battlefield. We could not have known that. We would have not believed that factor. In our family, my daughter, Christine, was the first one to see combat action in a rocket attack at Baghdad International Airport in 2009. I went to Afghanistan in 2010. I had the distinction of being awarded the Purple Heart, and it was my son Kevin who pinned the Purple Heart on me. His unit had the job of coming to our FOB to perform what's called PRT, Reconstruction Team Security. He was in the 181B company. And the 101st did a nice story on it. You know, father cautioned son not to earn Purple Heart like his dad. And what does he do? 7 months later, he was wounded by a thrown hand grenade to his tower at Camp Phoenix in Afghanistan. He made it out okay. We're okay. But to have served on the very same battlefields as my kids is mind-boggling. And I'm not the only one. If you stayed in the Army long enough, your kids followed you right behind you. And this is the kind of military that we have. It's a father-son, father-daughter, mother-daughter, mother-son a relationship. And what we can be proud of is that what General Petraeus called the next greatest generation. That every year after 9/11, during time of war, we had 300,000 young people raise their right hand and say, "I do solemnly swear. I do solemnly swear." And they knew they were going to war. Michael DeMarsico knew he was going to war. He could have went to college. He went to Fort Benning. My daughter knew she was going to war. She could have went to college. She went to Lackland Air Force Base. Same with my son, who also went to Fort Benning. And many like them. They chose the path of service. Josh DeForge, who we always mention at this time, could have done anything he wanted to do, but went to Parris Island. They wanted to fight. They wanted to be part of the solution. They wanted to be part of defending America. That's all they wanted. That was their job one in life. And although they have made the supreme sacrifice, some of them we're talking about, they did accomplish that. And we'll always be proud of their service. We'll always remember them. And at ceremonies like this, and where Nelson opened up here just a little bit ago, this is the kind of place you can do that, because we're all here the same. It's all of us here, the same people, right? More or less, we're all together. We're all friends, and I really appreciate what you did opening up about your service, Nelson. So what we have to know is that our duty as Americans is never done. We are the leaders of the free world, like it or not. Isolationism that's begun to be spoken about is not a solution. So whether you think that we're going to where we should be and how we should be, we're going to be. We're the leaders of the free world. We talk about people downplaying the role of NATO, likening it to a protection racket. Well, guess what? The only protection that NATO ever authorized was protection of us after 9/11. The only time Article 5 was invoked was in our defense. Keep that in mind when we talk about who's paying what. We would be nowhere without NATO and our allies. I want you to know that this ceremony tonight, I talk about this ceremony everywhere I go because it is so special to veterans. And our gathering tonight is very meaningful to me. And again, I'm honored to say a few words tonight. I saw one of these things on Facebook, a meme, whatever you call them, and it says, if we want to honor the lives lost on 9/11, let's be the Americans we were on 9/12. And that's a message we should all take to heart. And with that, I thank you very much, and we will always remember our fallen. Thank you.
Before I invite Sally up for the dedication of the bricks, I need to make amends to one thing. I need to introduce our department district commander, Cindy LaCrosse, and adjutant, Louis Brault.
Yeah. Okay. So next we will be dedicating the new bricks that were placed over by the flagpole. Harold J. Doney, Staff Sergeant, E6, U.S. Army, Korea and Vietnam. James Pierce, Navy. Gilbert Crowther, U.S. Army. Alfred H. Doney, E3, U.S. Air Force. Dates 1953 to 1959. Now, we're going to take one moment here while I get everybody organized to lay roses. So if all those who are laying roses would like to come up and line up, the fire department would be first, the police department will be second. Remember, one row. Jake, did you want to lay the rose for the forge? Oh, you did good. They're going to use a specific one. So when that name comes up, go to them and tell them that's your rose. Don't pull it out. Here. So yours is with them. So actually, you're going to Nelson, step back one, right here. We will now lay a rose for all those killed in action since 9/11 and for the firefighters and police who were killed on 9/11. So the first rose is for the 343 firefighters, including one chaplain and two paramedics from the New York City Fire Department killed on 9/11. The 92 police and emergency medical workers from the New York and New Jersey Police Departments, as well as the New York and New Jersey Port Authority killed on 9/11. Sergeant First Class Daniel Henry Pittori, Cheshire, 2001. Sergeant Gregory Belanger, Deerfield, 2003. Sergeant Glenn Richard Allison, Pittsfield, 2004. PFC Marcus J. Johnson, Springfield, 2004. CW2 Stephen Michael Wells, North Egremont, 2004. First Lieutenant Travis John Fuller, Granville, 2005. Captain John William Maloney, Chicopee, 2005. Specialist David J. Babineau, Springfield, 2006. Sergeant Clint Story Palmer, 2006. Corporal Jeremy Paul Buffard, Middlefield, 2007. Specialist Kenneth J. Iwasiniki, Belchertown, 2007. Sergeant Daniel Allen Newsom, Chicopee, 2007. Specialist Ari D. Brown Weeks, Leyden, 2007. First Sergeant Kevin A. DuPont, Chicopee. Sergeant Joshua David DeForge, Ludlow, 2010. Nelson. Go back one. Just one. Yeah. PFC Michael R. DeMarco II, North Adams, 2012. Ooh, one more. Nelson, one more. Specialist Mitchell K. Dalling Dalton, 2013. Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Springfield, 2015. And our final rose is presented in memory of all those servicemen and women who have returned from active duty and died as a consequence of their visible and invisible injuries sustained while in service to the United States of America.
As we depart, let us say thank you for those who are with us and who have given their time in the defense of our community and our country. Thank you, the police department, the firefighters who keep us safe. They put their lives on line every day. And remember those who are no longer with us, and commitment to their community, nation, especially keep in mind those who have given their ultimate price for freedom. We'll now have our closing prayer.
Uncovered. Dear Lord, as we leave this ceremony, grant us the ability to cling to examples of goodness that emerged out of horror. May we follow these examples in our everyday lives and remember why we attended this gathering. May God bless all who remember that day. In your name we pray. Amen.
This concludes our 9/11 ceremony. I would like to thank everybody who from the town, all over the state who has attended tonight. Again, thank you for attending our ceremony.